Hi, I'm Maureen Paraventi. I'm talking today with Lucinette Alvarado, CIH. Lucinette is SKC Inc.'s Corporate Industrial Hygienist and Technical Services Manager, Media. Now, SKC Inc. is known for providing innovative solutions in the industrial hygiene and occupational safety spaces. So welcome, Lucinette.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Maureen. How are you?
I am well today. How are you?
Awesome.
Now, we've got an important and serious topic to discuss today. Ototoxicants, a primer on a unique occupational exposure challenge. Am I pronouncing that word correctly?
Yes, it's Ototoxicants. Yes.
Well, it is well known that noise exposure can damage hearing, but certain chemicals called ototoxicants can also cause hearing loss, as well as balance problems. Now, Lucinette, what kinds of chemicals constitute ototoxicants? And follow up, are there different categories of ototoxicants?
Sure. So before we got into the question, I just want to talk a little bit of like what is ototoxicants, because first is a big word, and people may get a little bit intimidated by that concept, right? So that word, it's so oto means ear, and toxicants means poison. So these are ear poisons, right? So these are the chemicals that could cause like hearing loss, as you mentioned, and also like balance problems, regardless of the noise exposure in the workplace as well as other areas, right? So going to the question about the different types of chemicals, there's a variety of them, honestly. And it could be from solvents like toluene and styrene have been reported as ototoxicants. Also, we got asphyxiants, and those are called systemic asphyxiants, which are gases that pretty much intervene with the oxygen in your body. So, for example, carbon monoxide and hydrogen cyanide are good odo reported. Then we got metals too. These are mercury, also lead. Believe it or not, tobacco smoke is also a ototoxicant. Yes, because their studies suggest that smokers that have 70% or have 70% or greater chance of developing hearing loss because of the smoking. And then the secondhand smokers, it's around like 50%. So yes. And then the e-cigarettes, I mean, there's not much studies that can like suggest that e-cigarettes are ototoxicants. However, that doesn't mean that they're not ototoxicants. That makes sense. And then last but not least that I want to mention are pharmaceuticals, like the medication that we take. There, from a medical standpoint, there are some medications that are listed as ototoxicants. And at times we don't know that employees are taking those type of medications, and then we're like questioning ourselves as OHS professionals, occupational environmental health and safety professionals, like what's happening. And it's probably because they're taking those pharma or medications on it. And then I think I answered the questions.
I think you did. I am surprised by a number of things you said, including that cigarette smoke can damage hearing. I don't think that's widely understood, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, because many people like think about, like, for example, the tobacco smoke as affecting the lungs, which of course it does. But those like ototoxicants can be misleading because of that, right? And then those in toxicology, there's a concept called target organs, meaning that that chemical will affect that specific area in your body. It could be an organ, it could be an area. For tobacco smoke, for example, that target organ is, the hearing.
Now, Lucinette, you've written extensively about ototoxicants, and you call them the missing link between noise and chemical overexposures. Now, what do you mean by that?
Well, so as an OHS professional, I have done so many surveys, noise, air, you name it, I've probably done it. So I've, talking with people like me, and like doing work in the field, at times we have done so many evaluations, like in an area, for example, and things are below the occupational limits, and but then that includes air and noise, and then all of a sudden, after you do an evaluation in a work area, you get a call from the medical department in that company say, hey, this employee who just recently got monitored for X, Y, and Z in their audiometric testing is getting a threshold shift, meaning hearing loss. So you're thinking like, okay, my noise levels or the noise levels that I got were less than the occupational exposure limits, same as the ones that I did for air. So like, what is it? So that's kind of like the missing link, like thinking, having a different perspective of like, okay, it could be because of a chemical that could be targeting the hearing. So that's kind of like that missing link that I was referring to.
And how does exposure usually occur?
Well, it could be like any other chemical. There are several routes of exposure. It could be inhalation, it could be ingestion, and it could be dermal. So as any other chemical, like if you're overexposed from an inhalation standpoint, like aerosols, vapors, gases, it comes through, your respiratory system, and it metabolizes, and how it metabolizes, it could affect your hearing. Or say you don't have good practices in terms of, hygiene side of things. So let's say you are eating, but you didn't wash your hands, so it's a chemical, it could be in your hands, and you eat a sandwich for lunch, for example, that's ingestion. And then dermal, which is a route of exposure that now is like being recognized. People, like, they don't want to wear gloves or whatever PPE they need to do to cover their skin. Then they have contact with that specific chemical, and that will absorb into the skin, metabolize, and affect the hearing.
And are the health effects of ototoxicants worse if exposure to them is combined with exposure to loud noise?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about toxicology. No worries, it's gonna be simple because I know toxicology can be a little bit complicated. So, in the world of toxicology, ototoxicants can affect the human with the combination of noise, and I'm gonna discuss two effects. So it's the additive effect that I'm gonna put as an example the solvents and the noise. So the solvents, if you're exposed to those vapors, right, they enter the bloodstream, let's say by inhalation, a route of exposure, and then they go through the sensory cells in the inner ear, that'll be their target, right? And then with noise, then that blood flow increases, and then that adds to the hearing loss effect. So that's additive, right? Solvents plus noise equals like hearing loss effects. And then the potentiation effect, and I know that sounds like a very complicated word, but this is the one that elevate noise in combination with the chemical, so increases the potency of that hearing loss, right? So I'm gonna use the asphyxiants as example. So carbon monoxide. So carbon monoxide is a systemic asphyxiant, meaning that it will reduce the oxygen in your system, and it's a lot of toxicology that I will not explain right now, but it's pretty much impedes the cells from repairing that noise-induced damage, which causes an increase in hearing loss. So because of that carbon monoxide getting into your hearing, and then that hearing is being affected by noise, it's kind of like potentiating that hearing loss effect.
Now, I'm afraid the answer to this next question is going to be kind of wide-ranging, but what types of workers are most at risk from ototoxicants?
Everybody is at risk of ototoxicants. Yeah. It
I
could
thought,
be, yes, occupational, non-occupational. I mean, the fact that some drugs, like for medical purposes, being taken, those are ototoxicants too. Like it just depends on those engineering controls from a workplace standpoint. And also the work practices, not only occupational, but also non-occupational. I mean, if you have a hobby, um I don't know, like if you're a welder by hobby, for example, or other types of hobbies where you have to handle chemicals, like you have, that's non-occupational, so there is a risk there too. Like if you don't know the potentials in terms of like irritation or long term, short term, whatever. I mean, there's a risk there. So yes, everybody is at risk for ototoxicants.
now how can an OEHS professional identify an ototoxicant in the workplace?
Okay, so they're in industrial hygiene, which is part of that OEHS umbrella. I call them principles. So the principles are like anticipation, recognition, evaluation, and control. So how we can identify those ototoxicants? Well, from an anticipation and recognition standpoint, you basically identify what are those chemicals that are being used, right? In the workplace as well as non-occupational, right? Because you need to see, oh, I need a paint stripper to do X thing in my house. So you have to identify what it is. And also you can check the SDSs, like from an occupational standpoint, you know, each company has to have these yellow binders with red lettering. So the employees or management or whomever's in charge of it can go to the SDS. For us as non-occupational, you can always Google it through that manufacturer of that chemical when you buy it at a hardware store, for example. And then what you're going to look at is at the toxicology section, right? In that toxicology section, there are some keywords that will help you like determine or have an idea of whether or not it might affect your hearing. So if you see the word ototoxicant, that's a given, right? But if you like see like neurotoxicant in there, there's a high probability that that chemical is an ototoxicant. So you have that, and then from an occupational standpoint, then you look at the OELs, the occupational exposure limits from OSHA, from ACGIH, etc. And when you look at those, there's now notations. Okay, notations meaning a specific characteristic that that chemical may have that will affect your body. It could be skin, it could be an irritant. In this case, you see the three letters OTO, which is auto. That means that that chemical is classified as an ototoxicant based on, you know, some epidemiological studies or toxicological studies. So those are the key things to do from an anticipation and recognition standpoint. And then from an evaluation, from an occupational standpoint, you basically perform the air monitoring in conjunction with the noise survey at the same day, at the same time. That will be very preferable. That way, the results, you know, will give you an idea of what's happening in the workplace, and then you have that data in case you see you know receive that call from medical saying, hey, this person has a threshold shift or a hearing loss, and then you look at your data, you can identify what's going on. The challenge about that is about what I mentioned about medications, because you can have all the data and everything justifies that there's no issue, but then the employee has that hearing loss. And it's because of the HIPAA regulations and all that, those laws from a medical standpoint, it's kind of hard to ask the person, hey, are you taking X, Y, and Z medication, right? So it can be a little bit challenging in there, but as long as you kind of like evaluate what's happening in the workplace, at least if there is like, if that chemical is an oto, and then you have high levels, you can implement controls, which is the other principle on the hierarchy of control. So, you can eliminate the chemical, or if it's the noise part, you can put some engineering controls, or for the air part, laughing hoods or any type of local exhaust ventilation system. And also you can apply administrative controls, PPE, which it's not the first one. It's like after you investigate everything else, then you consider PPE. So it depends on that situation.
Now, Lucinette, what kinds of solutions does SKC have in terms of helping companies prevent their employees from being exposed to ototoxicants? And I'm going to guess, although I'm not a scientist, that it all starts with knowing whether or not the ototoxicants are present and at what levels.
Yes, and SKC provides a law, everything you need. We provide in terms to assess the chemicals, all the potential exposures in the workplace, in addition to noise. So in addition to the chemical agents, we also can address the physical agents, meaning the noise in this case, using SKC products. So from pumps, air sampling pumps, we also have the media, which if you're unsure on what to use, in our website, skcinc.com, we have a sampling guide where you can look and then write down the name of the chemical or CAS number. There's different options there, and you write it down, and it will give you a list of all the analytical methods that are available to assess or analyze that, and then the sampling media that you need, the equipment. So that's a good tool. After you do that anticipation or recognition, during that process, go to our website and then see what you need to assess it. And then for noise, it's just noise. There's no media. The tool that you need for that is a noise check noise dosimeter, which is very easy to use. So you can you have to put the noise dosimeter on the employee. Remember to put it in this area here, so it's representative of your hearing zone. And then if it's a chemical, if it's active sampling, which is a sorbent tube connected to a hose, connected to a pump, then you put it also in the breathing zone. So the employee will have two things. I mean, in the beginning, may not like you, but as long as you develop that relationship with the employee, at the end of the day, they'll probably say, hey, can I take it home? Trust me, I got that a lot of times when I did evaluations like that.
Oh, that's funny. They do eventually get to, I appreciate this, and can I take it home?
Yes, exactly. It's the funniest thing.
Well, is there anything you'd like to add, especially about SKC's services and products?
Sure, SKC is the way to go in terms of all your occupational health and safety needs. You can always contact us at skctech at skcinc.com from technical inquiries. I'm part of that team, so you probably will see my name whenever I'm responding to those questions, and we're here to help everybody.
Thank you very much for talking with me today, Lucinette Alvarado. I got a great education about ototoxicants, and I hope the viewers do too. Lucinette is CIH, Corporate Industrial Hygienist and Technical Services Manager Media for SKC Inc., a provider of innovative solutions in the industrial hygiene and occupational safety spaces. And as Lucinette said, if you'd like more information about SKC products, just go to skcinc.com. Thank you for watching.